For every victory, for every highlight, for every team in the Summit Athletic Conference, we've got you covered. Like, follow, and subscribe for all the latest. Okay, welcome in everybody to week number 2 preview of Northeast Indiana High School football. My name is Jeff Mahoney and I'm joined by Casey O'Boyle of Northeast Indiana GameNight. So this is our week 2 preview, and for SummitCitySports, the game of the week will be Bishop Dwenger at Northside. And Casey, not many people had Northside beating Snyder last week. And
you did.
I did,
yeah.
But beating them by 30 points, that was a little shocking. But what a performance we saw by Deuce Taylor. I got to tell you, I've been covering high school football as a participant or a fan or in the media for a long time. I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback display like that.
I totally agree with you, especially if you're talking just pure passing, right? And I'm sure we've seen some great performances out of guys running and passing, but what he did throwing the ball last week, off his back foot half the time, off balance, sometimes running for his life. We talked last week, Jeff, about Snyder's ability to get pressure with their front four, and they did that. And it still didn't matter. He threw 2 or 3 dimes that were just unbelievable. Had a game for the ages. And, clearly he was our player of the week. We discussed that this week as well. And there were a lot of great performances, don't get me wrong, but I don't see how anybody could take another player this particular week, knowing what Deuce Taylor did, 18 of 26, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns. Those two, the 5 touchdowns and the 378 are school records. Northside's been playing football since 1927. That's just remarkable to set 2 records in one night like that. And not only did he set 2 records, but to do it against the Snyder Panthers. That, to me, is the biggest caveat of the entire conversation. So Snyder's still young, but my goodness, what a performance.
Absolutely. You see Ronald Collins III, who started off his career at quarterback there at Northside, really settling into his own. He had 119 receiving yards. What Jordan Turner did was absolutely outstanding. Athletic receiver, had a 70-yard touchdown, a catch that you see right there. And Hassan Lambert, the running back, he went both ways. And that's one thing about this game that really impressed me, was the pressure that the Northside defensive front 7 was able to put on that big offensive line there at Snyder, led by DJ Moore, LaShawn Miller, Hassan Lambert, Jake Lambert. I mean, these guys are impressive, and not to leave out Arion McCarter.
Yeah, the defense was unheralded in this story for sure, with the points and the numbers that Deuce put up in that offense. But you're so right. You talked a lot about in the preseason how good you thought this receiving core was, and rightfully so. Adrian Sewell also had a nice game. Deuce did a great job spreading the ball around and really made that Snyder defense look out of sorts. I don't know if I've ever seen a Snyder defense look that discombobulated, certainly against a passing game. The last time I saw anything close to that was Jeff Samardzija-led Valparaiso team years ago. Had a pretty nice showing against the Panthers, and maybe there are a couple others that I'd have to dig deep to search for, but it did not look like a typical Snyder defense. On the other side, that Snyder offense looked out of sorts too. The first play of the game, the first play from scrimmage with the fumble and the scoop and score by Northside totally set the tone. And from that point on, Snyder looked like they were, I don't want to say scared, because that's Snyder doesn't play scared, but they looked out of sorts. And I'm not sure I ever saw a Snyder team, certainly in the years that we've been publishing Game Night, look that out of sorts, certainly against a team here locally.
I'd have to agree. And on the other side of the ball here this Friday is going to be Bishop Dwenger. They cruised to a big win against Wayne at their place, 35-12. Devin Tittman, he was second on the team in carries with 4 carries, but he had 19 yards, averaging 4.8. So it's kind of that game that we've come to see from Bishop Dwenger, where a lot of people are getting involved. That's one thing that Coach Garrett does a great job of. It's holding a lead and getting a lot of people involved. So what do you take away from that first win there from Bishop Dwenger?
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. There's probably not a lot to glean, certainly from a film standpoint. They scored just enough early on to, kind of put the game on ice at halftime. Ended up jumping out to that 35-0 lead and won 35-12. Rocco Sioka, two touchdown receptions, ended up with some good numbers there. You see him six receptions, 127. Really nice night for the 6'4" junior receiver who's drawing a lot of recruiting buzz right now. Brendan Lytle, the senior quarterback, looked like Brendan Lytle, very composed. That he had some pressure on him at times, but he did a nice job evading would-be tacklers. 11 for 16 for $170, 4 TDs, very, very efficient. The running game, though, was very, very suspect. I think if you crunch those numbers together, it ends up being, I want to say, maybe 2.2 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done tonight against Northside. There's just no other way around it. If the Saints can't run the ball tonight and keep Deuce and company on the sideline, I think they're in trouble. It will be a long night if they do not establish a running game. I think part of that running game, my feeling, is going to be Devin Tittman, whom you already mentioned, but also cousin KJ Tittman. He had one reception last week for 12 yards. This is a kid that is he's kind of in the fullback mold, if you will, Bishop Dwenger style, but he's strong. He runs well. I think he's going to have to get 7 to 10 to 12 carries tonight and pepper that interior Northside defense if Bishop Dwenger is going to be able to sustain drives, chew up some clock, shorten this game, and have a chance to win.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to make the most out of their possessions because Northside, they can get up and down the field in a hurry and put up points. We saw that last week. They scored on a defensive touchdown to start the game. Not that Deuce Taylor and company need any help putting points on the board. So this one for sure is going to be a great game at Chambers Field, Northside High School, 7 p.m. on Friday. Can't wait to see it. The next game I want to look at is Homestead at Concordia. Now, Homestead, a lot of people said, oh, my gosh, first time in 17 tries, Northrop beats Homestead. What a huge upset. Homestead was playing without some of their players, pretty much their whole linebacking core. But what Concordia did on Friday at Southside, holding the Archers to, I think, minus 15 yards total for the whole game. Wow, Casey, that was impressive.
Yeah, actually, I think it was minus 35, minus 15 passing and minus 20 rushing. Those are the kind of numbers you expect to see like in a monsoon, right? Like, 6 inches of rain or a bitter cold or something, not on opening night. And I was shocked to see that. We knew this was going to be a good defense. I'm telling you right now, this is the best defense Tim Manigle's had out of Concordia. Not real deep, but my goodness, top to bottom, all 11 guys fly to the ball. Really, really solid in all three levels defensively. Amir Drew, 170 yards rushing. He had a nice performance. Brandon Davis did his thing, one of the top QBs in the area. No interceptions, very clean in that regard. And Cam Johnson, the senior return man, had I think an 84, 85-yard punt return for the Cadets, and they did whatever they wanted to do. It wasn't a perfect performance by any means, but wow, that defense looked spectacular.
When you're talking about the Concordia defense, I'd like everybody to take a look here at the sophomore linebacker, James Rusher. Keep an eye out on James Rusher, only a sophomore, tied the team for a high 6 tackles. He had 3 tackles for a loss. And somewhere in here, you're also going to see there's a sack for minus 8 yards and an interception. That's a great first game for the sophomore, James Rusher.
Yeah, not bad for little brother. Isaiah Rusher, his big brother, has been a 2-year starter and has done some nice things, too, on that defense. Again, we're going to see this, I think, week in and week out for Concordia, where there will be new names and different guys that step up, that lead the tackling chart, that come up with those big interceptions, those big sacks, those big TFLs. This is how this defense is. We were out there the other day, and if you got a shot of our cover, you're welcome to put that up, Jeff. we saw this senior class, they are very, very confident. They look the part of a team that can compete for an SAC title. I know that's saying a lot here in just week 2, especially with the likes of Dwenger, Dwenger, Carroll, Bishop Dwenger. But Homestead should be on upset alert again tonight. Yes, they were missing a lot of people last week against Northrop, but what Concordia has coming back, especially this senior class, is really, really special. And I know everybody's probably already penciled in Chittard as a 3A state champion, and that may prove itself out. But I would love to see these cadets get a shot against Chittard in the state finals come November.
And that's 9 seniors that we see there leading tacklers. So obviously speaks well. I know Coach Manigault loves his defense and really likes the speed that they bring to the field. Now over there at Homestead, oh my goodness. Remember Braden Hardwick last year was the SAC's leading rusher before he went out with a knee injury. I believe that was in the Carroll game. Hardwick rushed the ball 19 times for 216 yards with 2 touchdowns. What a great performance. It looks like he's good to go from that knee injury.
Yeah, he sure looked healthy, didn't he? He, like you said, Jeff, had a fantastic year ago, get cut short a little over halfway through the regular season. That really changed, I thought, what Homestead wanted to do offensively a year ago and put that much more pressure on Luke Goody at quarterback. But Braden Hardwick is back. He's running with confidence. That seasoned offensive line, they have 3 all-conference type performance that are back as seniors. And those guys are paving the way for Braden Hardwick. And again, if he's able to run with much success tonight, that will really help Evan Ormsby, the first-year varsity starting quarterback, settle in, do his thing, allow him to play action and get that offense going a little bit. Because if they become one-dimensional, in other words, if Concordia is able to take Hardwick out of this game early on, I think the Spartans are ripe for another upset.
Well, one thing that's definitely going to help the senior quarterback is when he gets Ethan Chambers, the wide receiver, back on the field. We talked about a lot of the linebackers and the defenders, one of those being Ryan Burton, who's a 2-year starter, I believe, as a sophomore and a junior for the Spartans. But once they get those guys back, I think Ethan Chambers is a guy that's really slipped under the radar because of all the offensive power or weapons they had in the skill position last year. Chambers didn't get a whole lot of touches, but I got a chance to see him this past summer, and he was the MVP of the Traction AP exposure camp that I went to, and he's going to be going to Indiana State with Jared Kistler to play football.
Yeah, amazing story. Another kid under the radar that folks will find out about soon enough. Jared Kistler gets all the headlines because of what he's done in the past. 677 receiving yards a year ago. He's just that big target and the big name on that receiving core. But and they've got a couple other guys, including Sparrow and Anderson there that both had 2 catches a week ago against the Bruins. As Evan Ormsby gets more comfortable in that offense, I think Homestead will be just fine. But they're going to have to pass the ball, especially, I think, on early downs tonight to be successful.
Okay, and the next game we're going to look at is Snyder going to Carroll. Carroll was their dominant self like I thought they'd be early on. When you bring back a quarterback like Jeffrey Becker, I just thought they were going to start off this season hot and ready to roll. Snyder obviously suffering the big loss. You got to believe that Coach Tittman is going to have this team ready to go the second time around. And obviously with Coach Dinan, used to be a coordinator at Snyder along with Coach Tittman under Russ Isaacs. I mean, this is a nice rivalry in Fort Wayne.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's I don't want to say it's contentious by any means. That wouldn't be accurate, but it is feisty, but I think in a healthy way. I mean, both those guys were up for the job, of course, when Coach Russ Isaacs stepped aside, and it was a 2-man race, and everybody around knew it was either going to be Coach Dinan or Coach Tip, and Coach Tip was the one that was selected. Coach Doug Dinan then took his services over to the 4-5, as we like to call it, and look what he's done out there with Carroll. And it is a great rivalry. because of that, but also it's a great rivalry because of the kids and the programs. They're really solid 6A programs right now. Carroll figures to be a big favorite tonight because of Jeff Becker, because of what Northside did to Snyder. I mean, you think about a young defense and having to face Deuce Taylor and Jeff Becker in back-to-back weeks to start out, especially after the COVID restrictions and all the lack of preparation to start a season. Not an easy chore for the Snyder folks on that side of the ball. But you also have to think Concordia, as they were seeing scores last week, were just kind of, oh no, or not Concordia, excuse me, Carroll. They were seeing the scores, were cringing because you never want to face a team that's just coming out of a hornet's nest like that. And Coach Tip will have those kids ready. Snyder definitely has to be considered an underdog here, but they're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder. They do not want to start the season 0-2.
No, absolutely not. Going back over to Carroll, yes, Jeffrey Becker is an absolute stud and only a junior at Carroll. Are you a little concerned? Doesn't seem like they have that established running back yet at Carroll, which, last year Becker suffered some minor injuries late in the season because of how much he did run. He did lead the team in rushing with 7 carries, averaging 4.4 yards per carry. But Hunter Mertz, going 2 ways, was second on the team. He had -1 yards rushing. And also, all this being done without Cam Hedgecock.
Yes, that's a good point, Jeff. Mason Englert had a game for himself, though, also in the return game. But 6 receptions, 149 yards, 3 TDs. Monster effort for him. But you're so right. If they're going to rely on Jeff Becker to be their leading rusher, which he very well may be 4, 5, 6 weeks into the season, I think that's a dangerous game to be playing if you're a Carroll Chargers fan. If he goes down, they are not the same team. I think they need to keep working with some of these other guys. Hunter Mertz last year was their goal line specialist, had a ton of short yardage touchdowns. But as you mentioned, he's a linebacker, and he's carrying a load on that side of the ball as well. Surprising that they don't have anybody else there to step into that role. Haven't spoken with Andy Papagiannis, the offensive coordinator, in a while. I might have to hit him up this week, depending on what happens against the Panthers, because they clearly need to identify somebody there to carry the rock other than Jeff Becker.
Yeah, I guess this is the first time I'm noticing, but Mertz not playing on the defensive side of the ball, at least not registering a tackle via the stats. One last take on Snyder last week. Really impressed with the Northside defensive front 7, able to get pressure on Snyder. It seemed like when they had the sophomore quarterback in there, Luke Hopper, that he was able to get out and scramble a little bit more to keep the defense a little bit more honest. But do you think that's going to be an ongoing problem for Snyder with the offensive line, even though they do have one of the best offensive linemen in the state?
They do, but they look discombobulated on both sides of the ball. The Northside was able to generate a lot of pressure, especially off the edge. And I think, knowing those coaches, Coach Isaacs, Coach Bush, I mean, they're gonna work with those linemen and get them straightened around, find a way to tighten some things up. I think if you're at Snyder, you've got to be able to run the ball. It's pretty simple. You can't put that kind of pressure on a first-year quarterback, especially if one of them is a sophomore like Luke Hopper. Darren Swanson, I think, is still going to be the starter, but I anticipate seeing both of them and doing the 2-platoon thing for a while until one separates themselves. And so it was just a rough start all the way around for the Snyder Panthers. And the question, of course, is, and we're asking this a little bit about Northrop and Homestead as well, but I think we know the answers there because of the attrition that was, suffered by the Homestead Spartans with so many players out. But is Northside that good? Are they really that good? Or is Snyder really that bad right now? We know they'll be better because that's just how Snyder football is. They always improve as the year goes on. They've got great coaching staff. They're going to be better at the end of the year. But did our eyeballs tell us what we think we saw last week with those two programs? I think we'll find out a little bit more this Friday.
Excuse me on that one, but I just wanted to show you this run by Tyrese Brown. Like you said, He's a big running back for him, only a junior. Check out that little shiftiness there with the feet making the defender miss. So if I'm a Snyder fan, I'm really excited about Tyrese Brown and this team going forward. Just a kind of a perfect storm, if you will, with that Northside victory.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a guy they got to get going. And then that'll set up their play action passing plan, especially with their tight ends and backs out of the backfield. They don't have, at least as of yet, that real dynamic playmaker on the perimeter to really stretch a defense, and that's a concern as well.
Well, the next game we're going to look at is Bishop Luers traveling to Wayne. Both teams looking for their first win. And really, on paper, this looks like a very evenly matched game. Should be a really good one. Coach Haydock's going to coach his first game at Wayne Stadium. And, you know, that stadium has been a tough place to play in years past. And there's a lot of pride kind of promoted over there on the south side of town, right there by Waynedale. So also heard maybe Krishan Menson might be available this week.
That's what I'm hearing as well. Mm-hmm. I've heard that as well. That'll be a big addition for Bishop Luers. You know, they just got off to such a horrible start last week. 2 or 3 plays early, a couple turnovers and a couple penalties and a turnover really put them in a hole quickly, and they never recovered. Wayne also had a few missteps, a couple penalties that turned away key plays against the Saints, so they could not get out of their own way as well. Some of that's to be expected with young players on both these programs. The Wayne people are still getting used to their coach. You know, that takes some time as well. But I expect Coach Haydock to kind of get things ironed out and to really have this team churning by the end of the year. They've got some speed. Speed kills, as we know. Bishop Luers, on the other hand, really, really young. I was really disappointed in their effort, that score to be down 48-7, I believe, at the break. Kind of shocked me. I thought they would hang around a little bit in that game and actually be in it maybe to start the third quarter, and then Carroll would pull away. But again, Becker to Englert was just way too much offensively, and the Knights really couldn't get anything mustered when they had the ball.
Aiden Meek is a player that you have pictured on this week's edition of Northeast Indiana Game Night. He's a junior quarterback now. He's really settled in as the starter. What do you take away from Aiden Meek and what he's been able to do early in his career?
Well, I think getting some reps last year really helped set him up for this year. It's making him more comfortable, having to learn an entire new offensive course. I'm sure he wasn't looking forward to that, but he did such a nice job last year when he was kind of thrown into the fire, so to speak. And against Bishop Dwenger, he was pretty efficient. I believe he was maybe 5 for 9, had some decent passes. He does give them the ability, the option to run once in a while with him, but although I don't think they want to, but he's fairly elusive. He throws a good ball. And if he can get the ball to some of those other playmakers, I think Wayne's offense will improve as the year goes on.
Well, the last game we're going to look at, Southside is traveling to Northrop. Northrop with a big victory. Demarius Cowan, a night to remember for the Bruins, winning it on the road at Homestead. Southside's coming in, and you know, this is a team that's kind of they're going to have to wipe the slate clean and just start over and have fun out there and play hard.
Yeah, you're right, Jeff. For Southside, you know, maybe going on the road isn't the worst thing in the world after a tough home loss a week ago where they just could do nothing right offensively. Only 1 first down a week ago against Concordia. Northrop's defense is good, but I don't believe it's going to be as good as Concordia's defense. So there will be some opportunities early on, I think, for Southside to have a drive or two. Can they finish, though? That will be the key. They need to score early just to get that belief, that confidence going on that side of the ball. When I spoke with Coach Norfleet this week, he said that he thought their defense played pretty well, all things considered, against the Cadets. They're going to have a tall task this week against Demarius Cowan. 262 yards, I believe, 264, somewhere in that ballpark. 37 carries, though, which was a school record. That's a lot, especially in August, right? 37 carries. Which tells you a lot about I think Coach Dorfler's mindset last week, I think he really felt like, knowing Homestead was missing those top three tacklers, also knowing that he was kind of breaking in two new quarterbacks. If they could ball control and hang around, which they did the entire game, they could steal it late. They absolutely did. Sebastian McCormick made the tackle from behind that jarred the ball loose against Hardwick, whom we talked about earlier. That fumble basically in the red zone, sealed the Spartans' fate. Huge upset for Northrop. Coach Dorfler, the Indianapolis Colts coach of the week. Congratulations to him, and deservedly so. But yeah, 37 carries for Demarius Cohen. So are we going to see the same type of thing tonight? I doubt it. I would imagine Southside's going to load up the box and say, no, somebody else has got to beat us. But you never know. Coach Dorfler's a smart guy, and he keeps things simple. And if you can win by, running the ball between the tackles, he'll do it.
Absolutely. I would like to take note, Mississinawa is traveling to New Haven. We will be covering that game. A big week last week for the quarterback, Shakur Williams, along with Lane Woodson, the wide receiver, had 3 catches. All of those went for touchdowns. I was even told that he had dropped a ball that was right in his chest. Could have been another touchdown. He is the brother of Jalen Smith. That right there is a really nice duo in the NE8.
Yeah, those two are highlight reel kind of guys. DeAndre Wright is another one. He had a great game as well. New Haven is a dangerous team. I mean, we felt that way these last few years. They've got a lot of talent, a lot of athletes on both sides of the ball. But yeah, Lane Woodson will be fun to watch him this year as he emerges, because, as you said, he is a touchdown maker. If you touch the ball 3 times and you get 3 touchdowns, I like my odds. I think Coach Jimmy Lynn needs to find a way to get him a few more touches with that ratio. But I don't know a ton about Mississinawa, but I would be surprised if New Haven didn't win this game easily.
And you've heard some rumblings. Leo was traveling to Angola. Obviously, that was Caden Miller last week just had a big week for Leo. He made our top 10 list. And that game may not be going on. Things really might be shaken up a little bit, is what it sounded like.
Yeah, I actually got confirmations, Jeff, from the coaches involved that those games have been canceled. Garrett DeKalb and also Leo at Angola, which was the game I was really looking forward to outside the city. I thought that would be a fantastic matchup. Apparently, because a player tested positive at DeKalb, they made the executive decision to shut it down, I assume with the encouragement of the Board of Health, and then Angola kind of followed suit. So very disappointing for these kids. For those kids, hopefully it's just a short-term blip on the radar, but it opens up the possibility for a Garrett-Leo matchup. And both Jared Souter and Krista Pugh hinted to me that that's in the works. So as we tape this on Wednesday afternoon, we'll see. Maybe by Friday night, they'll iron things out. That will make some interesting adjustments in terms of game plan and watching film on one another. But at the end of the day, if kids can play and they can get reps for their teams, I think they'd both be for it.
Both teams were scheduled to be on the road. Leo at Angola, Garrett at DeKalb. Did they hint where that game might be played at a neutral site, perhaps?
No, I have not. I've not heard, but obviously I'm assuming that the stadiums will both be available. Maybe they'll meet somewhere and do a coin flip.
Absolutely. Well, Casey, thanks so much for joining us. Once again, that was the Week 2 preview in Northeast Indiana, presented by Kelly Chevrolet. My name is Jeff Mahoney with Summit City Sports, and that's Casey O'Boyle with Northeast Indiana Game Night. Folks, enjoy the action this Friday. Once again, our games of the week are Bishop Dwenger at Northside and Homestead at Concordia. So do enjoy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for watching Summit City Sports. To help broaden our coverage, we're asking you to become a monthly sponsor to our Patreon account. We produce weekly highlights and live video broadcast. When the Homestead girls golf team won its first state title in program history, we were there. When Fort Wayne brought back 3 state titles in cross country, we were there. We believe in sharing positive stories and setting the standard for how high school sports should be covered. Join us and donate today.